Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Ben and I am a self-taught web developer who went from zero to paid full stack in 8 months studying via the Odin project. And in today's video, I wanted to answer a question around self-taught developers versus computer science graduates and how much you get paid. Is there a difference? Do self-taught developers get paid less compared to people with a degree? Okay, if you're interested in this kind of content, please do like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and leave a comment with any thoughts or questions that you might have. But all I can give you today is my own experience as a self-taught web developer and compare my salaries to those you might find as industry standards, whether or not you're self-taught or have a degree. I think one of the really important things in answering this question is it's not so much does a self-taught developer get paid less or differently from someone with a degree across the board. It's more about the individual company that you're looking at. So, does a company accept developers, applications for jobs from developers who are self-taught? Most companies now, at least in North America that I see, in Canada and the US, are accepting applications from both people with degrees and people who are self-taught. It's more about whether or not you can do the job than if you just have a diploma with your name on it, stamped from a university that says you have a degree. There are plenty of people out there who don't have degrees who can add as much value or more than people with degrees in companies. There are specific jobs where having a degree would really help, I think, in more, down a rabbit hole in a particular area of development and computer science, where you could have only really picked up that content with a degree. But for most web developers, which is a more generalized skill set, you can learn enough being self-taught. And a company, people running companies are smart enough to know that you don't need a degree to be a good web developer. And I think any good company that's run well is going to accept applications from people with degrees or without degrees. What matters is, can you do the work? And within those companies, it really doesn't matter, again, if you have a degree or not. They're not going to pay you differently, right? You're not going to come in. They generally have specific job categories. So you're going to be an engineer 1, engineer 2, engineer 3, okay? And you can become like a principal or a staff engineer. There's different job bands or classifications. And these bands and classifications are going to get paid a certain amount within a range for the person doing that job. And I don't think there are going to be many companies that are going to be paying differently because you have a degree or not. Okay? The degree is used as a filter for getting in the company in the first place. Once you're in, the pay is up to you to negotiate on how much value you add. It doesn't matter where you went to school or if you went to school. So I think my summary here is it's going to be company dependent, and that may be country dependent as well. There may be a culture or a philosophy within a certain country where most companies want a degree. I'm not sure where that is, but I have been told that that is the case in some countries. Luckily in North America, that's not the case for most companies. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of a summary of my earnings over the past, say, 2 years as being a professional web developer, being paid full-time, and comparing that to national averages in Canada. This is just one data point, an N equals 1 assessment of the difference in pay that I received versus what the national average is, just to give you a sense of what a self-taught developer might be able to earn working within Canada. Okay, so let's jump into my screen share here. So what I have in front of us here is, this is all from Glassdoor. You may have heard of Glassdoor. It's a pretty popular website for, well, like it says, it's giving you a view into what's typically hidden or secret or private information behind company doors. And so there's a whole list of companies that are listed on this website, and you can view many things. One of those things is salaries for different job positions, but you can also look at interview feedback, questions, things like that. You can look at people's sentiments around the company itself, processes, how well it's run. You know, it's a look into the information behind closed doors, like I said. Very useful website if you are looking to go to a certain company or applying to a certain company. I recommend coming on here. and checking them out. It may give you a sense of whether or not you'd like to work there or not, whether or not the pay is within your expectations, etc. There are other websites. Levels.fyi is another good one, but for today I'm looking at Glassdoor because I'm not sure if it's Canadian, but it has a good coverage of Canadian companies. So here we're looking at software developer intern salaries in Canada, and this was updated February 22nd, 2024, so it's very recent, 3 days ago. And it's labeled as very high confidence. Let's see what this says. So it means this data is based on a large number of fresh, recent salary reports. So I think we could say this is a fairly good snapshot, an indication of what software developer interns are being paid within Canada. So the average base pay, and let's just differentiate between base pay and additional pay. Base pay is what you get on your paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever. That's what you're getting paid per year. And in some positions, you're also going to get additional compensation or benefits. And there's a whole range of things here. It could be bonuses, stock options. You could get other remuneration benefits. I'm not sure because I've never actually received them really. But what you try and want to do is assess your total compensation, not just the amount that you're getting on your paycheck. And Glassdoor does give a fairly decent indication of the additional compensation that you might receive. So average base pay in Canada, this is Canada, Canadian dollars, is $49,000 to $62,000 per year. And it gives you a handy range here. So you can see 49 on the low end, 62 on the high end. And this is the national average for a software developer intern in Canada. And the mean, it looks like, is $54,960. So when I got my internship, I studied the Odin project for 8 months. And worked my butt off, and I was very fortunate in being tagged on a post on LinkedIn for FreshBooks. So FreshBooks is a Canadian company based in Toronto. They do kind of accounting, bookkeeping software that's now expanding, but their key niche is generally small business and helping them lubricate their daily processes around bookkeeping and managing employees. So I got a job there as an intern. And my pay was $70,000 per year. And I worked there. So it was a 4-month contract. In September of 2022 is when I started. And that ran through to the end of December. But they extended my contract a second time. So I went from January of 2023 through to April of 2023, still earning $70,000 per year. And then at the end of that, they did want to extend my contract again for another 4 months at the same pay. But I declined that contract just because there had been layoffs at the company and it was only a 4-month term. And I had the opportunity to go back to my old job, which was paying around $95,000 per year or something like that, working in government. For me, it was a no-brainer to take the more stable, higher-paying job and look for other software developer jobs in the meantime. But as you can see here, $70,000 per year, it beats the national average of $54,960. Now, some caveats here is that FreshBooks opens up its internships to anyone. You don't have to be in school, enrolled in a program. And that was huge for me. Without that, I would never have been able to do this intern. And there are a couple companies that do open up their internships to people who are not enrolled in school. So definitely, if you're one of those people like me, who was at the time being self-taught, self-teaching, highly recommend really doing some homework and trying to find those companies if you want an internship. Find those companies that do accept people who are not in school. Most of them will. And I think one of the reasons for that, when I say most of them will, I mean most of them will be looking for people in school. I think one of the reasons for that is because they get funding, at least in Canada. If you take on an intern who's enrolled in school, I think the government pays up to half of the salary of that intern. So it's in the best interest for the company to hire someone who's in school. However, there are lots of companies out there, I believe, that value talent no matter where it is and are willing to pay for that talent and nurture that growth, because that person is going to be a great lead as an employee. There is an incentive here for companies to hire good interns. If I stayed at FreshBooks, I would be an employee there right now. I think very high odds. There were 2 other interns who were doing the exact same thing as me in the same time. They are now employees at FreshBooks. So I was on track to becoming an employee at FreshBooks if I had stayed on. So there is incentive for companies to do that. What else can I say about internships? There is timing windows on internships. You've got to be within those timing windows. Keep an eye on companies that are hiring those that don't require degrees as well. And like I said, Shopify is a big one for that in Canada. And comparing the pay I got at FreshBooks at $70,000 a year, it was greater than what I would have received at Shopify as well, which I think was $60,000 per year, if my memory serves me correctly. So, short answer, as a self-taught web developer, my internship salary beat the market. And so it stands to reason that if the national average is around $55,000 per year, a lot of those people were in school, because most companies are looking for people who are in school. As a self-taught web developer, I was beating the average for internship salary, including those people who were obtaining a degree. So that answers that question. Okay, so let's look at junior software developer salaries in Canada. I'm going to go through intern, junior, mid, senior, just so you get a good snapshot of the salary ranges within Canada for software developers. So again, very high confidence, updated a couple of days ago. So the average base pay is between 49,000 to 67,000 Canadian dollars per year. And then there is some cash compensation here. So these are estimates, but they include cash bonuses, commissions, tips, profit sharing, and yeah, that's what it includes. And that ranges from $1,600 to about $5,600 with an average of $3,000. So we could say that, maybe $52,000 to $70,000 per year as a junior software developer. And a junior is going to be someone from 0 to up to 3 years of experience. I personally think that by, say, year 2, you're probably encroaching into the mid-level developer range if you're, a fast learner. But anyway, that's the salary there. So even as an intern at FreshBooks, I was still beating the national average for a junior developer. And when you think about it, junior should be higher than an internship in terms of seniority and pay, etc. Which it is, as you can see in the national statistics here. We're going from 49 to 62 to 49 to 67. So a slight bump up. My story was, so I worked at FreshBooks till the end of April 2023. I went back to my old job for 4 weeks, and I found a job within that time as a developer and left after 4 weeks with a big smile on my face to get out of there. But I landed at my job for a small company out of Toronto. It's in Ruby on Rails. And my starting salary was $110,000 per year. So it beats the heck out of this salary range for a junior software developer. Now, there are obviously caveats around that as well. I was coming into it. I think it really depends on your body of work and what kind of confidence the employer has in your skill set, the stack that you're working in. There are many confounding factors. This is national averages, but individual companies and individual tech stacks are going to pay different rates. So if we look at Ruby on Rails, this is just a quick search in Google, but is Ruby Rails in high demand? Ruby on Rails has a strong and high demand job market, where a Rails developer stands to earn some of the highest wages in the tech world. Ultimately, Ruby on Rails continues to evolve and offer numerous opportunities for a web developer. So that is one of the big caveats here. Ruby on Rails is one of the highest paying tech stacks that you can get out there. Go on the Stack Overflow developer survey, and you will see that Ruby on Rails does pay very well. Now, the big kicker here is there are not many junior Ruby on Rails jobs. In fact, I could count on one hand the number of junior Ruby on Rails jobs that I've seen in the market in the last couple of years. They just don't exist. Like unicorn poop, it really is impossible to find. So that's a big risk. If you do take the Ruby on Rails path, be prepared for that challenge. Now, I had to step into another tech stack, working at FreshBooks, working in Python and JavaScript. And then I built up 8 months of solid experience working in one of Canada's biggest tech firms. And that was very strong experience, which was enough, plus my personal project of leading an open source project on a dog adoption application that I built myself from scratch, which I think is very impressive on a resume as a new developer. These things combined, plus spending a ton of time on the technical assessment to get into this company to make sure that I gave my best and put a very good attempt forward, it was enough to get me in with this company. That's also combined with the fact that finding good Ruby on Rails developers is bloody hard. It's time consuming. There's a lot of people out there who call themselves Rails devs that aren't very great in the stack, and then the ones who are good in the stack command a lot of money. You look at salaries out of the States, and they're paying significantly larger amounts than they're going to pay anyone in Canada to work on Ruby on Rails. So all of the talent is going to flood to where the money is. So for a company that wants to pay a little less, $110,000 Canadian per year, that's cheap compared to what they're going to pay other Ruby on Rails developers, right? That's how I think I'm able to command that much money in this tech stack with my experience. Not everyone's going to be able to do that, okay? And not every company is going to be willing to pay that much. I just got very fortunate, and I was good at negotiating, and I think I brought and showed a lot of value, all right? I think there's reasons why I got paid that much off the bat with, less, I'd say, about a year of paid full-time experience under my belt, plus some other projects and side work. So that's kind of aside as to why I think my salary with 1 year of paid full-time experience was significantly greater than this. Now, if we look at mid-developer salaries, this is someone who might have a couple years of experience. The average in Canada is $59,000 to $94,000 per year, with an additional cash compensation of around $5,600. But it does go up to maybe $10,000. So we're probably breaking the $100,000 mark here for mid-level developer salaries in Canada. But it's a pretty big range. And again, this is very high confidence. So you can see here that my pay was still beating this as someone who I would say was a junior. But it really, again, depends on the tech stack and the company and how good you are at negotiating and what kind of value you can bring and show to the person who is signing your paychecks. But that does answer the question. Does a self-taught web developer get paid any less? Well, the answer here is a definite resounding no. And then we look at senior software developers. So the range in Canada, again, is $87,000 to $118,000 per year Canadian, with an average compensation or additional compensation of about $8,500, with a range up to $16,000 per year. So here we're probably breaking, the average is $109,000. But here, we're getting pretty good numbers up here, from up to almost $130,000 per year, with a high range of about $135K per year. And that's consistent with what I've seen in other companies. There's FreshBooks. I believe the senior developers there were making, I think it was $130 or $135 per year, all in. And then I looked at a couple other companies around that I was interested in. There was a JNAP out of Vancouver. They pay their seniors, I think, around this $125, $135. And I got a pay raise at the beginning of this year, and I would say I'm up and around here. I'm not going to say the exact numbers, just out of courtesy and respect to my colleagues, etc. But I'm definitely up in this range. So I could say that as a Ruby on Rails developer with about 2 years of paid experience, which would still really, if you're looking at the stats and the categories, I would still be classified as a junior developer. I am getting paid the rate of a senior developer in Canada. Now, this is, again, I think dependent on tech stack, and there are different pay bands and different pay rates in different companies across Canada. Now, this is just an average. Some companies are going to be paying way more than that. Some companies are going to be paying $150,000, $60,000, $180,000 per year. All right, now these are harder to get into, harder to find. So I think most companies are going to be paying less than that. But I would say, on the whole, as a self-taught web developer, my pay is pretty good compared to the national averages, and you can be the judge of that as well. And I think I'm very happy with that. I've worked hard for it. I believe the value that I offer is worth it, it's possible. You could definitely do the same too, but you got to work your ass off for it and show how you're valuable. There are a couple other companies I did look at. Most companies do pay less than what I'm getting now. Even Mid-level, I'd say that the rate that I get now is in line with mid-level to senior in most companies that I've looked at within Canada. Now, if you compare this to the States, it's a whole different ballgame. I get paid quite a lot less than a mid-level or senior would get paid within the States. So in the States, Ruby on Rails developers command serious money in a lot of companies. Obviously, there's going to be a band, a pay range, but the mid to upper range of that pay scale is pretty significant. You'd be looking at similar values, but in American dollars. And then when you convert that to Canadian dollars, well, I don't remember what the exchange rate is now, but you can tack on an extra 25% around there, roughly. So if you're earning $150,000 or even $100,000 US per year, you might be converting that to about 130,000 Canadian. Big difference, big difference. So that's why a lot of people also like to try and find US contracts, because they do get paid more. I think the States do pay the highest in the world though, so that stands to reason. Okay, is there anything else that I want to talk about here? I don't think so. I think I've covered it all. In summary here, as a self-taught web developer, N equals 1 just as for me. I'm doing pretty well in terms of salary within Canada. But there are cases where people would be getting paid more, but I think in most cases, people probably would be getting paid less. I know if I stayed at FreshBooks, I would be making less than I do make now. And there are many other benefits to where I'm at now as well, which I really do enjoy. But hopefully that answers your question. Can a self-taught web developer earn a decent living? How much do they earn with respect to people that have degrees? And I would say the answer to both of those is yes, you can make a decent living and the pay is very comparable. And if you are fortunate, you could even be earning more. I think fintech is probably the ones that pay the most that I can think off the top of my head. So if you're interested in money, then look at that. But it's not all about the money. You've got to find the people that you enjoy working with, the company's vision and mission that you align with, etc. Money is just one component there to consider. All right. Well, hopefully that's given you some inspiration and confidence to keep studying and grinding and to get out there and start making your applications and building a network and seeing where you land. If you have any questions about this at all, please do throw any comments or questions down below. I'd be happy to answer them. I think I love sharing this information, and hopefully it is useful to you. Okay, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.